Perfect. We're live. Chris
We
Hardy.
are live.
We're live. All right. So
As it says on the side of the camera here, you're in the show. Everyone can see and hear. And that means be careful what you say, motherfucker.
That's exactly what that means. Does it also say that you can see the comments?
No. Oh, where are those? Man, see, like every time people are asking these cool questions and what have you. No, I can't see that on my screen. But it's not full screen either.
Okay, because that might be just something that has to be pulled up, and like you're probably on your phone, which I suggested, which probably is minimizing you seeing the comments.
Probably.
But we could mess with it if you want. If not, I'll just kind of read you anything that comes through.
You always crush it. I'm not worried about it.
All right, thank you. So first things first, it says in the title now, the title has changed since the last time you're on Tint Wizdom, Director of Sales at XPEL.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well,
congratulations.
Thank you. I mean, obviously it means a number of things. XPEL has always been a company that's, touted itself in the idea that they try and promote within. And if they find that opportunity for you, then they'll definitely let you know that, hey, like, you have a shot at it and you should go ahead and apply for it if you want to. One of the mistakes I think they used to make in the past, which they've definitely realized they've got to correct themselves on and have done so, is that sometimes the manager would identify somebody who should move up, thinking that would be an appropriate situation for them. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes you're putting this idea in their head, and then they think, wow, like, like let's say I was saying this to one of my guys, and then they're like, wow, Chris feels that strongly about me. I should really apply for something, that next role that he's got me sort of engaged for and what have you. And then maybe they take it on and it's not really appropriate for them, and they didn't really enjoy it, and then they start to like not like their work life anymore, and they don't know how to, like, hey, can I go back? And then, hey, if I don't take it, will it affect my possible future opportunities with the company? So okay, so it's 5 years. It's literally just over 5 years for me. And I made it very well known to upper management almost immediately that whenever the time would come that Mike Mail would move up into a higher role, I would love to take on his position, and then and then continue from there. If Matt Moreau ever decides to move on to another role above senior vice president, I guess other than maybe CEO, but then that would mean that Ryan Pape would be moving out, which is, I'm sure, never going to happen, or hopefully never happens. Again, I want it. I want the chance. So what happened was Mike moved into this awesome responsibility. It's this job custom tailored for him. I'm sure, mergers and acquisitions are super important to this company, as you know. And our these highline opportunities such as like Penske and things like that. And so Mike's really taken on that responsibility, which we needed somebody focused in it. And then what Matt did, he took over the sales management, if you will, for North America and everywhere else over the past 6 months. And he allowed myself and Eric Cummins, who was formerly of Eastman, and then Zach Burke, who was formerly of Permplate, to show where maybe we would shine on our own. And rather than deciding on that role or position right then and there, he waited out the 6 months, and we naturally found our own niches, if you will. So I'm now the director of sales, but I'm going to focus on North America, to be clear. Eric Cummins is also director of sales, but he is going to focus on international opportunities. And he still does take care of a lot of that highline stuff also. He's, that's a talent of his that I definitely don't have. And then Zach Burke, director of, sorry, I'm going to screw it up, but it's basically like director of dealership operations or something like that. Sales in essence for North America. And then Hugh is sort of like global. So, it's a big promotion, and it's something I was really looking for, and it happened, and I'm obviously excited and happy for it. So thank you.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
So right before we got started, we were talking about the very successful SEMA showing that you had. And on that kind of subject, you also XPEL announced XDC dates and registration.
Yeah.
Could you touch on how SEMA went and some of what you're looking forward to with, I think you're still there. Yeah.
I am. I'm sorry. I just realized this happened to us before. When someone tries to call me during our podcast, it cuts me off. So I apologize. You were talking about SEMA and XDC, and you're asking.
And SEMA went really well for you. Tell us a little bit about that. And then XDC, what are you looking forward to this year? It's always obviously a big deal. And I imagine this year it is as well. Like a big highlight.
Yeah, especially because Eric Devash is going to be one of our presenters inside our roundtable discussion. So we're excited for that. Let's talk about SEMA first. I mean, let's be clear. SEMA wasn't just successful for XPEL. SEMA was really successful for Eastman and 3M as well. And I'm sure for all of the, and I don't mean to sound disrespectful, but for the smaller operations as well. And some of them, again, great operations. So I don't mean it to sound like disrespectful in any way, shape, or form. But SEMA was amazing. We got in there I got in there before, but on Tuesday was the first day, right? And Tuesday is obviously the slow day usually. And when I saw Tuesday's traffic, I was in shock. I was like, I think this is better than 2019 numbers, which, as far as I know, are the best yet. We were all of us were over in the new hall, which is a lot nicer than the older ones. Not that there's anything wrong with them, but you can definitely tell that there's a nice difference to them. We had a Lamborghini Sion Roadster, one of 19 ever produced. It was the first time that this specific one had ever been viewed by the public in any sort of forum. And then some people will get a laugh at this. Some people will chop my head off over it, but I decided to bring a Rivian in as well. And after everything that went down with the Rivian deal, and a lot of people that would up in arms in the very beginning about the Rivian deal, and then obviously most of those, if not all of them, came full circle later on, including competitors of ours who thanked us for it. I decided I needed one in there, to really showcase what this opportunity looked like for our independent installers. And it was awesome because Rivian sent in five Rivian reps who worked the show with us, specifically regarding Rivian. Super engaging, amazing people. There was a lot of traction on the Rivian. They allowed us they had it open the whole time. People could climb in and out. They could check out the truck itself. It was the R1T, had a full body stealth package done to it. Extra Plus window film, obviously ceramic coating from our Fusion Plus lineup, and some other stuff. So, amazing turnout. It was the first year that we had our new events and trade show manager, Kristen Gish, running this for us. She had been consulting for the past for XDC, but thankfully we opened up that position as a full-time opportunity, and we actually encouraged her to please apply for it. She did. She got hired and she crushed it, man. I mean, the woman is just unbelievable. The talent that XPEL is bringing right now to the team is ever impressive every day. So amazing SEMA. But again, let me be candid. I got to see what Eastman was up to. They had a phenomenal booth, a lot of staff, like some of my really good friends, like Rob Ruska was over there working it. 3M was right beside us. They had a great show. They did really good with their vinyl applications, especially. They had some really cool designing installs getting done live on the floor. It was well done. It was well done. And again, I think that generally speaking, everybody was probably really pleased participating in SEMA. Then, the other cool part was that we had, of course, our customer appreciation event. It was Thursday night. We tried to do our best not to overlap with some of the competition to allow everybody to sort of have some space. I don't know that we ended up not overlapping some, but I mean, we didn't overlap Eastman's, that I'm sure of. We didn't overlap Ceramic Pros. So it was good. So we had this amazing turnout. We had it at a chateau. It was an indoor-outdoor thing. And I was kind of worried because the morning of the SEMA party, it was calling for really cool weather. I mean, it drastically changed, and it was talking about rain. And then this place, Chateau, was saying, well, hey, don't worry, we've got these heaters. And I got into the space way ahead of everybody else, very open, no crowd yet, and it was already outrageously comfortable. But yeah, we just went way over the top. We had a hero wall, and it was really neat because I don't know how Kristen arranged this. I'm sure this is something you're used to, but I hadn't seen it before, where you take the picture, but the picture watermarks the logo into the picture automatically for you. And so just with the photo, you scan the QR code, boom, now you can grab the photos. And then so we had like a standing hero wall for that. And then we had some people who were walking around. We had this insane DJ that we had at our XDC last year, if you remember. This woman from Los Angeles, we brought her out again. She just crushed it. The staff at Paris called Paris's Hotel Chateau, the place we had the party, was amazing. But what was really funny was that Chris and I were talking, right? And I'm like, look, like this is going to be the first year back to SEMA with full capacity, and I think we got to do something that's really going to leave a lasting impression. And so what we did was we got a hold of Luxottica and Ray-Ban specifically, and we had them do an activation with us where they outfitted every single guest with a pair of Ray-Ban sunglasses. People were so shocked by this that most people, well, I don't know about most, but certainly a lot of people came up to me and said, "Hey, are they real?" Because they're not cheap, right? And it wasn't like Ray-Ban gave these things away. So it was an
It is
expensive,
Vegas, but that
it
would
was an
be.
expensive part of the party, but it was amazing. And then the coolest part was that I had a budget that I had to work off of, right? And Kristen and I were trying to do our best to make sure that we fell within it. And I was talking to Ryan Pape 2 days earlier, and I had not told him about the sunglasses. I was filling him in on some of the details about this, what was going down at SEMA, what I had planned. And don't get me wrong, there was a budget allocation for the sunglasses. He just didn't know specifically what it was. I was trying to catch everybody by surprise. And it worked. And then but here I was on the phone with him. I'm like, look, like, so I budgeted for our guests. But of course we had a lot of staff. And I said, what I didn't budget for, of course, was the staff. They're there to work the event. And I just wanted to be candid with you that they're not getting a pair of sunglasses. However, like, I know that I can get Ray-Ban to bring more. How would you feel about that? And he goes, oh, well, I think we need to make that call right now. This is me on the phone with him, right? And he goes, well, I think we need to make that call right now, that decision right now. And I go, okay, what's the decision? And he goes, oh, we need to do it. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. So on the bus ride back from SEMA that day prior to the party, I'd let the staff know, hey, there's a really cool thing happening at SEMA. I'm not telling you what it is, but you guys are going to see it. And by the way, you guys can all partake in it. And that gift is from Matt Moreau and Ryan Pape, because obviously, when we go over budget, they're the ones that've got to approve it. So that's like my little, snippet of how SEMA went. And I'm sure that if we had Manny at EPD, or, any of the Eastman boys, or Mike Beaver, or any of those guys, 3M on the call, they would probably be saying the same thing. Then leading into XDC, like you asked, yeah, it's, that's the thing that, it's insane, but our customers, and maybe it's true for others, I don't know. They really look forward to this every single year. And it's amazing how some of them literally are trying to book it the next year while there, right? Even though we don't have that live. And I'm in a lot of, large group chats. I know that you've been in some of them in the past when we've been organized a race or something like that. And these chats are crazy. Like every single day, I've got one chat in particular that's got 57 people in there, like a Mike Burke and Eddie at Detail and Dynamics and Ryan Townsley and blah, 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 blah. The list is endless, Automotive Elegance, et cetera, et cetera. And every day that chat is live and it's going off. And XDC is in that chat at least once we go. When's the next one? How many? What's the countdown? But yeah, so it's coming up. It's a little different this year. It's not in February. We would have liked to have been in February like usual. But San Antonio is becoming a major destination for conventions. And as you know, we had a management change in the director of marketing. So unfortunately, we didn't lock up. We had a a proposition in front of us, and we didn't lock it up, and he wasn't with us, and unfortunately nobody went to go take a look in time, and then they had already given the spot. So it's in April. It's like April. I apologize. I can get the dates if I need to, but it's like April 21st, 23rd, or something of that nature. Everybody will typically arrive on Thursday. All day events on Friday and Saturday, including competition. Major guest speaker this year. The guest speaker this year is kind of like an Elon Musk style speaker, so I'm really excited to listen and hear from him. Really cool breakout sessions. We've got you doing a breakout session. With regards to all that you have to, not that your expertise is most appropriate, because we're not saying this is a sales pitch, right? This is an opportunity for you to lend your knowledge on CRMs and things of that nature, and why they're so important and integral to run a business. Also exciting for the first time is Mike Burke and Thad Norman, who is I don't know if his title is general manager or something of that nature with Sunstoppers and Velocity, which is their marketing company. They're going to be there. They're going to have the other side of the sessions with you. You guys are sharing the same room, but like you're first, they're second, or they're first, you're second kind of idea. That's going on. Obviously, advanced training for PPF, tint, coatings. I just got news yesterday that Brett Clark, who I guess I'll share some news. He's going to be the director of training as of December 1st. Vic Beisel, who's been the director of training for a long time and a good friend of mine and a mentor to me in many ways, he's retiring. Congratulations to him. He's a younger individual, loves his off the grid sort of lifestyle. His wife's a lawyer. They've done right by themselves for all these years. And so Brett Clark's he's actually going to do a breakout session as well, on operations and processes, things of that nature is what I'm gaining from the outline of what he was going after. We are going to do social media. There has been, I'll get ahead of this now. There's been a lot of people have been asking about Jared and Jessica, right? Good friends of mine, people that I refer to a lot for social media marketing platforms and things like that, and how to help boost your business. At this point, I don't know if they're going to be back this year, and if so, let me be very clear. If so, it's not because they're not crazy popular. The only reason would be that there's this idea that, hey, rather than running 4 and 5 and 6 maybe years in a row, maybe it's smart to change it up 1 year. But I do know that they're very popular, and we may or may not see them this year because of that. I'm still waiting to see what the final verdict is. But XDC, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be at the Grand Hyatt San Antonio. April will be an amazing time of year. Weather should be stunning. And like always, we're going to have, a really good time, some amazing meals, and a lot of cash. I mean, there's a lot of cash being given away at the awards for the the winners and second and third place within the competitions.
So, with XCC, what stands out is obviously like the educational breakout sessions, obviously like the networking and the speaker and so on. So that's obviously one of the big takeaways from it as somebody attending. Whereas like SEMA, obviously that's not happening at SEMA. But what do you not? I don't expect you to speak on behalf of XPEL, but what do you see like in an event like SEMA? What do you see as like what you can get out of it for like as XPEL, like what you look to get out of that event? And then what do you think a dealer, whether it's an XPEL dealer or another company dealer, can look to get out of an event like that as well for themselves?
Well, SEMA or XDC are two totally different things. And I don't know if you were specifically asking me for one or the other or comparison.
Let's say SEMA first.
Okay, look, SEMA to me, the reason why XPEL and I'm speaking on behalf of Eastman and 3M, and I probably shouldn't, so I apologize to them in advance if they disagree with me, but I don't think that they would. You're really more there as a support network of your existing clientele. I mean, do all of us get some leads from people that are considering switching from another brand to us, or maybe adding this line of opportunity within their workplace? Yes. It definitely happens. I think it happens a lot, especially on the international stage. A lot of international clients or prospects show up asking about, hey, like, do you have a master distributor in this country, or could, is there any chance I could get in there? Things of that nature. Uh, and then of course there is obviously some local ones too. And it's funny because some of the times the local ones are, like in our case, clients that we've shot, sounds rude, that we've declined, not shot down, but declined. And I know that happened to me on a number of occasions here at this last SEMA, right? But I think that if I was like new in business, I think that SEMA would be fantastic to go and shop a bunch of competition and try and get at least a feel for what I can anticipate should I decide to go along with that brand and they decide to go along with me. But how much new business is going on at SEMA, I think is questionable. Is it worth it? It's a very expensive ordeal, right? I mean, that people like us and Eastman and 3M, there's no way that they're getting in under $500,000 or way more.
So like this year, there was a lot of pretty booths. There were a lot of big booths. Obviously, there's a lot of companies that are in a position, like you mentioned, where they're maybe trying to acquire customers and they have to be out there to be known. And this is a big opportunity. So you have them putting out the money. Then you have companies maybe in a more mature state, and they're there because you have to be there because of the presence, and can't not be there because now what's going on. So
right.
as that continues to kind of like build, is that something that you just consider, like, do you forecast in the next 3-5 years that that's just going to continue to build upon itself?
Yeah, I mean, great question. Like last year, right? We found out that 3M pulled out, I don't remember, call it 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks prior to the actual SEMA event happening. And people right away, as internal people, reached out to me and were like, hey, do we pull out? And I'm like, oh, no fucking chance. Like, there's no way. And it wasn't because of whether or not 3M did or didn't. It was just because I don't like the way that it looks, unfortunately, to our client base. You can't afford it. You're not spending the money on it. You're not participating in it. And it is, unfortunately, those things I believe people are going to consider. Now, rumor, which is strictly rumor, right? Is that Eastman was sort of waiting to see if we also pulled out. And I know, and I'll tell them openly, like, we were waiting to see if they were going to pull out. My words to the internal team was, hey, if Eastman also pulls out, then maybe we definitely pull out and we'll consider saving the money. I don't know if it's true that they were saying the same thing in return or not. Those words have floated around, but again, there's definitely no verification on my part. But what I would say is that if they had also pulled out, we really would have considered it strongly to do so, because there was a big question mark about, is the turnout going to be there? But again, when you really get down to it, like, are you really constructing a lot of new business at SEMA? I don't think that any of the big three are probably gaining a whole lot of new opportunity. It's definitely some. And, all it takes is one really decent client to pay for it. I mean, all of us have got multi-million-dollar clients. Well, all the big three do. And so, you happen to land one of those for whatever reason, then sure, SEMA's paid for. But again, it's almost like you have to be there. But here's the weirdest part. Michelin, right? I don't know, world's largest tire manufacturer, I think. They pulled out. And they pulled out like 3 years ago or 4 years ago or whatever it was. And I don't think they've been back. Are their sales suffering for it? I don't know the answer to that. Only they would. I doubt it. I would suspect that they're not. And I think maybe it's the same thing. Maybe that their client base is so mature already that they're like, where's the real ROI on this? And that's a term that comes up all the time, right? What is the ROI? And I'm like, guys, I don't know how you can always measure ROI, in fairness. I mean, it would be wonderful to suggest that you could and have a really good in-depth analysis about where does this pay off and how does it pay off. But I think that you're BSing yourself when you try and come up with something, unless you're going to do like, hey, buy 3, get 1 free and use this promo code.
Right.
And you're going to advertise the promo code on a radio show or an Eric Devash podcast. Then if you generate sales out of it, then it worked using that code. But, for people like ourselves and 3M and Eastman, like, I don't see how we could ever even accomplish that, because we can't force our dealers more appropriately to partake in something of that nature. So I don't know. XDC, on the other hand, yeah, crazy, crazy, crazy valuable. The first time I went, I don't know if I ever said this on a podcast of yours before or not. First time I went to an XDC, I was in shock. I was genuinely in shock. I remember Ryan Pape went up on stage and talked for a little bit and addressed the crowd. And then, if I'm not mistaken, I think Michael Dobbins, when he was sort of running marketing back then, went up next. And I was like, "Ooh, this is interesting," because now I'm going to get to see what they had planned for the year, and maybe piggyback on some of those things and really, dive into them deeper and focus on them. But then I remember a guest speaker, this gentleman, walking on stage as the next speaker. And I remembered him from my days when I worked for Acura/Honda. And he was a sales training individual who did, sales training seminars for Honda Acura Canada. And I was like, whoa, I know this guy. I've heard him before. I've actually heard this same strategy or sales pitch, if you will. And I was like, and he's not cheap. Like, I knew he was expensive. And to understand that XPEL had decided to bring on somebody externally that they thought would resonate with their audience to help them build a better business was amazing. And then there was the breakout sessions, and I remember I was sitting in the breakout session. I was listening to Rick Jeffries from Automotive Elegance, and his partner Joe Gagney was also there. Actually, I think maybe it was the two of them that were addressing everybody, and people were like, "Hey, how do you get into dealerships?" And they were sharing their information with these XPEL people. Let me be clear, they'd have no interest in sharing with another brand, and I'm sure that's true of other brands too, right? But I was like, wow, like, the value that people are getting out of this. I mean, okay, yeah, there's the camaraderie, right? There's the partying, there's a, hey, let's have a drink together, let's exchange phone numbers, let's have a good time and pat each other on the back and tell each other how awesome we are. But the informative side of XDC is crazy. And let's go back to our good friend Mike Burke. Mike Burke went to XDC in 2018, and he was with another brand at the time for his tint and everything. And he's really happy with them. I think that they treated him really well. Like, he had no reason not to be happy with them. But he went to dealer conference, and according to his words, was the first time he had been in a room where he didn't feel like he was the big dick in the room. Here he was listening to Rick Jeffries and Ryan Townsley's and Eddie's and stuff like that, and thinking, wow, like, there's actually a bunch of other like-minded individuals in this room, and they're getting a lot out of this, and they're coming to XDC. Like, these guys have multi-million dollar operations, and yet they're coming to XPEL's dealer conference. It's not for the award. Like, they don't care about that piece of glass hanging on their shelf, right? And I don't know if it's, I shouldn't say I don't know if it's true. He told me that, like, he talked to this previous supplier right away and said, hey, if you guys want to understand one of the things you guys are missing, it's the way that XPEL does their dealer conferences. And I think that that's resonated for everybody that's ever been. I've told everybody, if you go once, you'll never want to miss it ever again. You think that it's all about us standing up there for 2 full days talking about ourselves and how awesome we are. It isn't that at all. It's not
So
that.
if somebody's saying, hey, I'm not 100% sure if at the it's kind of the beginning of the year, I suppose, not really, but sort of, not sure if I should spend the money. I have all these employees, or coming out of the winter and so on. But Chris, tell me, you think I should go? Tell me why. I mean, not me, I know why, but I mean, what would you say? What is that message?
It's the best investment you can make yearly in your business, bar none. Bar none. There's nothing that I think can pay off nearly as well as that money spent. I mean, if you want to invest, $20,000 in some marketing campaigns and stuff like that, then I'm saying, hey, that might pay off better. But I'm saying that for the $1,200 that it costs, including your room and your meals and everything other than your flight, call it $2,000, right? Best $2,000 you can spend by a long shot. I don't think that anything even comes close to it. And people will be like, well, I was thinking SEMA or XDC, and I'm like, no, you're not. You need to drop the idea of SEMA right now. You're already an XPEL exclusive operation. What are you going there for? Okay, if you tell me you want to go see the greatest car show on the planet, I'm in. Greatest car show in existence is SEMA. But that's as far as it goes in terms of getting anything out of it that's going to actually concretely build anything in your business.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to have a presentation there, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Obviously, last year was my first year. It was everything you said, no exaggeration, even down to the point of like, there was never a moment where you were sitting there listening to someone and it felt like for too long. That never existed. It was always like you wanted more. It was like moving on. It was fast paced. There were different things to do. And that's super appreciative to me, like, because anytime you're sitting and it feels like you're sitting for too long and you start to kind of wonder how long it's going to be, that's not a good sign. So that not existing is,
let's just get something on the record right now too. For those of you that are coming to XDC and you're going to be bugging Mr. Tim Ham, Felony Film, for some party favors, it's all smoke and mirrors. He doesn't have any.
Right. All right. So I had Manny last week on here, and
my dear friend
of yours. Thank you for introducing me to him. And something that came up, and something that's I don't know, something that I ponder is, you have sales reps, right? And the sales reps are the bridge between the brand and the dealers. They're an important bridge, right? Because the product is one thing, and then they're kind of, in a way, the face and the communication, bit of that customer service and so on. Now, traditionally, those sales reps obviously traveled around. They made phone calls. They went door to door and so on. We all know what happened with COVID. And then, now there's more of like this. I feel like you have two crowds, and I'm not saying they're split 50-50, but you have people who want to hear from the sales reps. You have also people who want to see the sales reps. And then you have people who just want it to happen, and they're not concerned about sales reps in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. Now, I would imagine that some of your customer base is going to be old fashioned. Some of your customers base is going to be new fashioned. And then how you decide to run your sales reps and situation is going to define the new customers that you bring on. So you have this, who do we want to be our customer? How do we satisfy all of our customers? Because you can't satisfy part of your customer. I mean, they won't be your customers potentially.
Sure.
What do you think the modern sales rep looks like in the next 3 to 5 years? Because, I think that there is something beyond just what the dealer wants. There is also the kind of similar to where, like, you could say the ROI on SEMA versus taking that money and putting it towards digital, or the ROI towards like TV and putting that towards digital. You could also potentially say, hey, if we steer in the direction of efficiency and less that one-on-one, we look for people who just want it done best way, the ROI will be there. Where do you see that direction going?
It's a really, really difficult one. Look, when I was a rep, running 15 states, I was very candid with prospective clients and existing customers, in that I have literally over 1,000 clients, literally. And, you think about how many days there are in a year of working days. Even if you want to say there's 365, you couldn't get to every single one of those in a year. It wouldn't be possible at all. So, and then I've got great competitors like 3M and Eastman, who have sometimes multiple reps within just one of those states, never mind 15 states, right? And and then you have some where, like 3M, for instance, right? You had Beaver being the national sales director, and then you had Irwin, right, who is the rep up in the New York City area. But of course, EPD had their own sales reps on top of that, so you'd even have overlap sometimes in that respect. In Eastman's case, you might have a Suntech rep and a Luma rep, and then a dealership rep, and I mean, it was just like, wow, like, so I knew that if the account was looking for that nonstop face-to-face interaction, I wasn't going to be able to satisfy them no matter what. And I was very open about it. I can't stand the overpromise, underdeliver. And so I'd just rather be real And it's funny because as real as I was and as often as I stated it, accounts would turn to me and say, yeah, that's fantastic. I actually don't want to see my rep. I don't have time for my rep. When they show up, I'm busy and doing something else and they're distracting me. So great. And yet, more than one occasion, I'd have people reach out to me a number of months later going, hey, like, when am I going to see you? And I'm like, wait, didn't we cover this? Like, I told you I probably wasn't going to see you. XPEL has definitely done a better job at addressing that. We brought on definitely a lot more reps than we ever had before. I think right now, if I'm not mistaken, I have something like 35 or 36 direct reports. And, Mike, when he first started, I don't know if he had, he wouldn't have even had 10, well, when he first started, when I first joined him underneath his team. So it's expanded a lot, but so is the sales. I mean, the numbers are increasingly stronger than ever before. I'm sure everybody heard we had a record quarter report on Ryan's earnings report last couple weeks ago. This quarter is looking to be the best ever again. I don't know, of course, if it'll finish off like that, but I suspect it will. Record year, but record year means more customers, more sales, more responsibilities, and more interaction needed. So what I try, of course, is to say to the reps and that you've got to do the same thing I did, right? You've got to let them know from the beginning that there's really two strategies of marketing, right? One strategy of marketing is B2C and spending an absolute fortune on that. And I mean a crazy fortune on B2C. And that will hopefully drive consumer awareness and then hopefully drive buying behavior, and the client shows up at your shop looking to spend money with you. The other strategy of marketing, which is still very effective, is what we would call guerrilla style marketing, right? B2B marketing, where I hire a bunch of reps and load up their cars with a bunch of product and tell them drive around, see every single person you can, ask them what they're currently using, try and convince them that you've got a better product feature benefit story than the brand they're using, show them some demo or some product to use and try, then try and win them over. But what I always said to customers, prospective clients especially, was like, look, like, which of the two do you need? And you've got to be honest with yourself, right? I mean, some of us, myself included, I'm high maintenance. Like, everybody knows I'm a princess. I'm not going to beat around the bush about it. And if I'm going to be candid, like, do I want that like constant one-on-one interaction with my rep? Mean being maybe I would, but unfortunately I'm always so busy that was the reason I didn't. But if it wasn't for the busyness, I'm sure I'd be like, yeah, you need to take me out and pamper me all the time and tell me how awesome I am as a customer for you, and you need to like kiss my butt. And and then the other option is, hey, I'm not going to see you, but I'm just going to constantly drive clients to your door. So do you want me showing up as your rep trying to collect money from you and convince you to buy from me? Or would you prefer a customer show up at your door trying to spend money with you? And I know that not Manny and I, but when Manny and I did that podcast together, he talked a lot about what EPD does. I don't know if they do it on everything. I don't want to detract from it just in case they do, but I know specifically on their flat glass division, which of course is what they're really, really, really well known for, if not maybe the best there is in maybe the world. Is they spend effort on that, on driving that opportunity to. The XPEL does that daily, right? And we do it with really high level stuff like Indy and NASCAR and British GT Series. I mean, oh my God, it just doesn't stop right now. And then all the way down to the influencers that are, that are gaining traction and magazines. I mean, whatever, millions and millions and millions of dollars per year on B2C marketing campaigns. And I think we do it better than anybody else in that specifically, although obviously Ceramic Pro, we got to give hats off to them too. They've done an amazing job on their ceramic coating, especially with that kind of messaging. And they did a really good job with it. So what does the salesperson look like? I don't think it changes. I think that the salesperson shouldn't change for the client, and I think the clients have a hard time hearing that. And I'm just being candid. I think that the salesperson needs to present what their company can provide for them, for the client, and be real about it, and stick to what they said they could do, and not and not lie to them, or not promise something that actually can't be done, or that they don't have the ability or the wherewithal to do it. Like a lot of people within our company are like myself, a background of being involved in the shop as an owner or operator, things of that nature. And that our experience has been able to translate quite differently, obviously, to end shop user and clients than probably a lot of others would. And I'm not saying that's true for all of us, right? Some of these guys that we have working for us, including some of my best sales reps, have actually have never run an actual PPF or tint or coating shop. But
well, and the combination, I think, is where you really get the beauty, because you don't want all of that of one thing. I think the different perspectives from people who do have that experience and people who don't, that can see it without being as much in the weeds, maybe, as somebody who came from that background. That's sometimes where the magic happens, right?
Yeah, and it certainly happens when we collaborate, together, right? I mean, we just had our New York Sales Summit. Huge shout out to Never Ride Stock, Rob Gullery, and Christian Zagami over there for helping put on the most insane sales summit I think has probably ever happened, especially in this industry. We took over New York City for a few days, and it was not a sales meeting. Let me be very clear, it was not a sales meeting at all. It was a summit, and there's a very big distinctive difference. We are going to have sales meetings, certainly more often than sales summits, but the sales summit allowed us to really spend time with one another, and share some of these stories slash successes and different strategies and mindsets of how to earn somebody's business, right? I mean, XPEL is still, right now at this moment, it's still turning down more than 9 out of every 10 people that ask us for an account. And, I think a lot of people think that there's like some nefarious reason behind that, or like it's something personal. It's never that. We'd like to sell more product, obviously, but we just need to be very cognizant of the ideas and promises, if you will, that we provided to our clients that helped us get to where we are, and we don't want to break them. So
Fair. And that's something that anybody should respect. And makes sense. It's not a personal thing. I'm sure, like you said, you want to sell more film. You mentioned obviously like standout quarters from XPEL, growth and record growth. And from a dealer's perspective, how could they best align themselves with some of that growth, in the sense, like, would it be advantageous if I'm an XPEL dealer to, try to fill up more territories that are maybe available, or expand into areas? Is it by taking more of a product line on? Is it by taking on, like, tell me some of the ways that kind of a dealer can align themselves with where XPEL is trying to grow, one of the areas, and that kind of fits with what they could do their part, that kind of just fits right in.
sure. So I think that there's multiple answers to that. One of them is, like you suggested, is to align themselves more so with regards to XPEL's product offerings. We know from our marketing opportunity feedback, of course, like anybody that's spending this kind of money in marketing, they're generating a lot of feedback to be able to custom design it, and filter it even better than what it's currently at. But we know that most of the clients that we're interacting with have a desire for more than one product offering. They're not coming to us for just tint or just coating or just paint protection film. And what we're realizing is that when you compare the shops that went earlier in the all exclusive opportunity than others, or ones that still haven't, you are still seeing success with the one, for the most part, for the ones that didn't take the exclusive, but they're not growing at the same rate by any stretch of the imagination. I had the most beautiful phone call. I have this message. I've saved it on my phone from Alex at Automobili Auto Salon. I met that man just over 5 years ago. He was 3M. That's rude. I apologize, but forgive me. Now I've already let it out. He was using 3M and he was using another brand of coating, and he calls me 2 weeks ago and leaves me a message, but I didn't answer. I didn't listen to the message. I called him right back. He goes, no, you got to listen to the message. So I hang up. I listen to the message, and it almost brings me to tears. And maybe he was in tears, but it was because he managed to buy a $1.6 million building, the building that he was in, that he was renting forever, that he's now purchased. And he's got a beautiful home, and he's got an amazing staff. And Christian, his nephew, is now really basically running the operation, and he's almost not even there for the most part. He's not a slave to the business anymore. And he attributes that success supposedly to my mentorship to some extent, although I think he's probably being very kind to me for that, and for sure for him deciding to make those changes and go with XPEL, and align himself, like you said. Look at Josh Popenick at Blackout, same thing, right? Other brands, drops the other brands, not easily, definitely not easily. I mean, man, that kid hated me when we first met. Straight up couldn't stand me. We laugh about it all the time because we're such good friends now. But that he's now got 3 operations. I shouldn't let the cat out of the bag. I won't let the cat out of the bag just in case I'm not supposed to. But there's him and Mike Burke are doing this like Tint Rescue kind of show that they're putting on. Again, you see where he's growing, right? He's recognizing, like you said, hey, there's a pocket of opportunity somewhere. He's got an 18,000 square foot shop now in Pittsburgh that he owns that building too. He owns the building that is a second shop that he moved into. I mean, the guy's got it going on. Like, look at Mike Burke. Like, he's got, I don't know, now he's really growing at a really fast pace. I'm sure the last time we were talking on a podcast, he might have been somewhere in that 50, 60 range, maybe at best, in stores. And he's way over. I think he's probably pressing 80 rate now. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's 200 within 2 years. But again, right, identifying opportunities where maybe there's a pocket that's missing. I think that if you're gonna go all, and I've said this before, like, forget XPEL for a second. It's very easy for me to talk about XPEL because that's my passion. But I'm a big fan of Eastman's. I've always said it. I'm never going to change that. And I'm a huge fan of 3Ms. I'm never going to change that either. And I say to anybody on this podcast or anything on any of these podcasts, I think that you're making a mistake by not being single branded. If you're a Suntech or a Lumar shop, you should be nothing but. You should be dropping everything else and going with nothing but that brand. If you're 3M, you should be nothing but 3M. I think that there's such a massive level of distrust when a customer walks into a store and sees you offering multiple brands of tint and multiple brands of paint protection film, and you're sitting there saying, well, so you can choose. And I'm going, but you're supposed to be the expert. This does not make any sense. And then why are you trying to sell me 3M versus Suntech versus Lumar versus XPEL versus whatever? Is it because you have too much inventory? Is it because they got a clearance going on? Is it because there's some kind of kickback from them right now or extra points? No. So single branding, I think, is the smartest thing anybody could do for their operation, regardless of brand that they're with, right? And then, but the other thing, of course, is doing something like All American, right? All American Paint Protection, Brett and Tiffany. Look at what they did. They went from like a 1.5, maybe 1.5 bay shop to arguably the nicest looking shop in the US, certainly in the 6,500 square foot range. The store literally looks like an Apple store when you walk. I'm not joking. I'm not joking. It literally looks like an Apple store when you walk in. Stunning, always busy, commands top pricing, does not discount at all, and has insane customer reviews. But where I was going with that is that instead of looking for more footprints, maybe the opportunity is to expand the footprint. Detail and Dynamics, they just took on a third shop, but the third shop is directly across the street. The second shop is directly behind the first one. So they're actually really all just one, fairly large location.
Mhm.
So I don't know. There are lots of different answers to that question, but at the end of the day, I think that the first thing you need to make sure of is that you're single branded, and then take it from there and decide with that company, hey, where are some areas of opportunity? Should I be making something large out of what I have now? Or would you like to see me take on more ownership of more opportunities and more operations?
I do think that it's just all around in the consumer market, like people, because you have more access to finding what you're looking for, no matter what it is, you potentially, I feel like people have a tendency now to look for more of a specialist, because you're not looking for just somebody who can do it. It's like, well, I can find who specializes in this, because you want the best experience. So I think that, like, I do feel that that aligns with what you're saying of being that one brand. Whereas maybe in the past, having those different brands might be the marketing that you needed to try and get people's interest in. Whereas now, I don't think that's the case. I also think it should lead to a smoother operation, just overall, which I think everybody can benefit from, is simplicity in a business, to just be as efficient as possible and, turn the wheel faster, right? Or more profitable.
Yeah, and I mean, like, again, like, there's also other mitigating factors that can come into play, like, for instance, ceramic coatings, right? Well, look, ceramic coatings constantly evolve. There's new products being added to them, subtracted from them. The chemical mix itself is changing. And what we're realizing is that if the pH balance is not neutral, it can have a pretty dramatic effect on the top coat of paint protection film. So, knowing that it's constantly evolving and changing, what you can't do as a brand is say, hey, put whatever you want on top of my film and I'll always warranty it. That's
Sure.
not possible. I mean, it might just be like, put battery acid on the film and don't worry, it's covered. No, it's not. So, with like XPEL, now 3M's got their own coating. I wouldn't be surprised if they were smart enough to say, hey, same thing, like their coating is engineered, I'm sure, to be applied on top of their paint protection film without any negative impact. And it's the same for us. I know for a fact, like, I'm involved with it. Chris West and I were just testing a bunch of stuff just yesterday, at corporate head office in San Antonio, whereby we're ensuring that, a lot of the new product offerings that we're coming to market with by XDC, are in fact going to stand up to what we need for product specifications in terms of going on top of our film or not. And so again, like, I have accounts where we call them the grandfathered accounts, right? Let's say that Eric Devash is an account of mine, and he came on in 2017. I didn't even have coding at the time. I knew about coding as a rep. I knew we were testing it, but it wasn't publicly offered. So I wasn't sitting there saying to Eric, like, hey, you have to, if you want to become XPEL, you have to give me your tint and your PPF and your coding, because coding didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
We brought out coding in 18, right? Officially, we launched it in February of 18. After that happened, I started saying, hey, now you have to carry only our coding, our PPF, and our tint. And that's it. That's the only option. We don't make vinyl. But I guarantee you, if I brought out vinyl tomorrow, which I'm not, but if I did, all the new conversation would be, hey, if you want to be XPEL going forward. Now, what would happen to the other accounts that I didn't have that product offering at the time? It's not fair to say to them, hey, well, you need to switch to anything I ever bring out, right?
Right.
So we don't do that. What we do is we say, hey, look, we're going to give you first right of refusal. If you say no, know that I still have to sell it in this marketplace, which may mean there's a new XPEL operation now in town or nearby. But I'm going to give you that choice first and foremost, right? But but what we're seeing is we've been making people aware of this, and we've been making people aware of the fact that some coatings for sure are damaging film. I mean, we're not even close to anyone seeing that. Everybody is, and if they're saying they're not, then they're not telling the truth. And so some of these companies, we've been going back to them saying, hey, look, like, we what we're going to say is this instead. You don't need to put coating on our film. Don't sell coating on our film. We're not forcing you to sell coating on our film. But we're saying that as the grandfather clause, we're not going to permit you to continue putting a coating that's damaging the film on the film. And don't tell me about your manufacturer of your coating saying it's okay, because that's not who gets to make the decision. It's us that makes the decision. And I've heard this. It is the most ridiculous, asinine thing I've heard. Oh, well, ABC said that they tested and it's fine. I don't give a damn what ABC said.
So warranty.
I have retardedly expensive labs with lots of technicians. I have off-site testing, which isn't even done by us, in multiple locations around the world, dealing with different environments, such as China with the massive, acid rain and stuff. I mean, it's done everywhere, and we get to decide what goes on and what doesn't, and what damages and what doesn't. But what we've been doing now is when we're realizing that these people they're not listening to us, in essence, right? They're continuing to do what they were doing before. We're saying, hey, you don't get the grandfather opportunity anymore, buddy. Now you're purposely damaging product. You're not making the consumer aware of it. They're not signing a disclosure saying, hey, I don't have any warranty on my film if you put this coating on, and I'm okay with it. So that client experience is going to be really bad if that film happens to turn yellow because the top coat's been eaten away. And so in turn, you lost your grandfather privilege. It's on you, not on us. So again, I apologize. That was a very long answer for me, basically just saying that I think the smart thing for anybody to do is be single branded.
Well, you brought up something that obviously is very important, which is being single branded, or at least less brands, alleviates product compatibility issues that basically eliminate warranty. So that's a good point, a great point. Now, Patrick Fransco in the comments and a couple other people kind of touched on this. If a shop is in the perspective that, because obviously best is subjective, if they're in the perspective that, well, XYZ company doesn't have the best, like let's say XPEL's full product offering isn't the best in every category. There's one category where I feel these other products, this other one is better for whatever reason. How do you ask them to deal with that?
I just say, hey, that's why it's your choice on whether or not you want to become XPEL. Like, it's not, look at becoming XPEL or becoming Eastman or becoming 3M is not for everybody, right? It's for those people that feel that is the best way to continue to further their business opportunity. It's not my decision, it's theirs. But I think that a lot of stuff is subjective. I mean, if I went to 10 tinters and I said, hey, what's your favorite tint? Whatever brand they're using is their favorite tint. And they're going to tell you that every other tint is shit in comparison.
Sure.
And that's because that's what they've gotten used to. And some of it's because they've been sold. I mean, there's really good reps out there that sell you hook, line, and sinker on product feature benefit. And maybe it's bullshit. Maybe they believe it because that's what they're regurgitating. I'm not saying they're lying, because I think that I want to believe at least that they genuinely believe what they're saying. But I mean, people say, hey, is your paint protection film the best in the world? And I'm like, no, there's no such thing as best in the world paint protection film. There's the film that you like using. I have an amazing product. Here's the reason why it's an amazing product. But if you're going to ask me if my product is invariably better than Suntech or Luma or 3M or especially those guys, I'm not saying those words.
Well, it's funny because people do get caught up on best, right? Like it's literally in the comments, right? And we're talking about it, but I don't know if many aspects of our lives do we really hold truth in any best. Like nobody's like, the best pizza is this one place, and that's where everybody pretty much agrees, or the best shirt or hoodie, or the best house, or the best state, or there is no real best in anything, right?
Nothing.
Like there's the best looking person.
And coding, I think, seems to be the one that people have the biggest hang up on. And I'm like, listen, man, XPEL is very serious about not putting down a competitor. If I caught one of my reps doing it, they may not be working for me anymore. I can tell you that now. Now, I mean, it's one thing to have a candid conversation with somebody and say, hey, like, I realize you're really stuck on Hardy brand, but I really believe that my brand is better for these reasons. Oh, okay, I'm good with that. But if you're saying, look, man, Hardy brand is nothing but shit that comes out of Alibaba and you shouldn't be buying it and you should be, That's the part I wouldn't be okay with this, especially if it's with Eastman or 3M. That's where I would really not tolerate it. But coatings, and like I I I have access to very, very, very real external data. And I mean external. I mean companies that yes, we pay them to do a lot of testing. They do indoor, outdoor, accelerated testing, non-accelerated testing, and I believe that currently we're using either 9 or 10 sites worldwide. All right. And these products that they're testing for us is all the brands, all of them, all the top brands, coating wise. And there's quite a few. I mean, there's a lot of good coating brands, right? And I would say that on any given moment, I can turn around and I can say, hey, send me a current, data sheet on sample 2. And then send it to me from all 9 or 10 locations or whatever it is. Send me the internal one, send me the external one, send me the accelerator one, blah, blah. And this is what the company does. That's what they get. That's what you get paid to do. They do not know what that brand is. They only have it as a number and nothing else. And I have still on my phone, I remember I was in a meeting. Mike Mail was putting the meeting on, and he was doing a PowerPoint presentation. We weren't supposed to take pictures, but I'm a bit of a rebel. So I snapped pictures of this PowerPoint presentation. This is anyways. I don't know if I should be admitting this right now. And I have it, and it's data. It's real data. Contact angle, hydrophobicity. I mean, it's got like everything. Pliable. I don't know, there's a word for it. Refraction. I mean, there was all this shit, right? And I'm looking at all this data, and I'm going to say something, and I won't say the brand because then they really like not be happy with me. There was one brand in particular that I kept hearing for years was just like the shittiest brand of them all. And I was like, oh, well, I've seen the real numbers, and you're full of shit. Like, this coating is actually really good stuff. It's got one of the highest contact angles. It's got one of the highest hydrophobicity initial, and then has done really well in 18 months later testing, and seeing how it holds up. Where I get a laugh, and look, and I want to be clear, it's not like XPEL doesn't look at the stuff as well, but you see these like longer term coatings. And I'm like, no reapplication. Oh, of course we got to do a yearly re-up. Okay. Then is it really that term? If I wanted to, I could say Fusion Plus is infinite lifetime. But what you have to do is once a year, reapply a coating layer of Fusion Plus. Yeah. That coating is genuinely intended, like most coatings, to have a real lifespan of between 4 and 5 years without expectation of reloading, right? I'm not talking about spraying a ceramic boost. I mean, true coating reload. Are there coatings that might have a little thicker capacity and maybe an extra year? Maybe. But are they giving up other stuff to do it? Are they giving up some of the hydrophobicity? Are they giving up some of the elasticity? Yes. You can give and take. And so long answer to your question is the coatings tend to be the one that people get caught up on the most. And I'm like, cool. If your business is 75% paint correction and coating, then, and you feel that, whatever brand is G-Technic or, Fine Lab or one of these awesome brands out there is the brand, stick with it. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you this, don't come to me. I don't even think it's smart for you to move. But if your writing on the wall is that paint protection film and tint is the way that your business is going, and that you see that it's got to continue to migrate that way, and you're stuck on your coating brand, I'm not sure you should be in business. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, it's fair. Coatings are definitely oversold. I feel like, at least from my own opinion, like from the past, like if you go back 7-8 years to the perspective that like you'd have maybe, okay, let's call 5 years ago, the perspective on ceramic coatings to the reality and where kind of like, as you peel back those layers, like you said, the reapplication, the initial impression that it's going to like help with rock chips and that sort of thing. The idea that you're putting like this hardest coating in the world on your car, but then somehow you have to use the best microfibers to protect it or else you see
Right.
swirls. Like,
Right.
I mean, those are like the strangest things, like conundrums. You're like, I just put something that's supposed to protect from like a lighter smashing against my car or rocks hitting my car, but then you're telling me I can't wash. I have to be very careful when I wash it because even the dirtiest rag could like fuck this whole thing up. So like, it is a little weird. I do agree with you there.
Look, I mean, there's a lot of people that thought coating was instead of paint protection film. I mean, a lot of
100%, but that's how it was marketed, kind of like at the beginning.
It was. Like, I remember, and I won't say the
boom.
brand, but that Subaru WRX, that video was amazing. I was like, oh shit, we're going bankrupt. Because this coating is insanely cheaper, and you know, I was genuine. I remember at the time I was involved with my amazing at the time business partner David Glendenning, right? Who's still the main owner or the sole owner now of Protex Chems in that operation, and he brought the video to me, and I was like, oh fuck, like, we are in trouble, and because this can be done by anybody, it looks like. I mean, and of course, it still need to be done by a professional, but it just looked that way, and it stops everything. There's no scratches, there's no swirl marks, there's no stuff. They panned the rockers on that car after running that dirt road.
Yeah,
and showed that there wasn't even a stone chip. So I mean, yeah, that is how it was being sold. Now, of course, it's come full circle, and now I think that at least all the responsible coating companies are saying, look, like, you want to have the best wax job in your life, last for years, and you want to be able to clean the car really easy, that's coating. Anything beyond that is bullshit.
Right. Now, I think it's fair to recognize, obviously, like, I in no way am like, I have no prediction of any intentions in marketing, but speaking outside our industry, like, that is a thing sometimes to bring something to market or to really like get the impression across. Like, you might overpromise to make the splash and then dial back. Tech companies oftentimes show things that don't exist at all. I mean, we saw that with I forgot the vehicle, but
the truck, the truck company.
The truck that was going downhill, and like, like, those are normal things. Like, I would say there's no demo you'll watch from Apple or Google or anybody where you're watching a product being demoed. That's a video. Like, they don't demo things anymore because it causes disasters. So my point is, like, whatever it is, good came out of it. But to your point, it's a different industry now completely, or a different, whatever.
Totally.
So if you take the average paint protection, average tint, and maybe there's some ceramic coatings in their dealers, right? We go nationwide. Let's take all of them. Let's chop off the top that are these exceptional, like, unique situations. Like some of the people you mentioned earlier that are doing extra well and have these, unique setups. Like, then you take the bottom, and the bottom might be like the people who don't give any fucks, or like they're not super capable or whatever it is. And we just take that middle, the average. What do you think over the next 12 to 48 months, and this is outside of XPEL, just in the industry, what do you think over the next 12 to 48 months are the biggest threats to those companies from the market, the overall market? And then what do you think the biggest opportunities for them are as well?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're still dealing with a massive labor shortage in this industry, right? And that was something that I know Manny had talked about last week, and Manny, man, I'm glad I'm not on with him again, because that man is an amazing speaker. He's so professional. He's so amazing. I love that guy. But yeah, I mean, I think that because of the labor shortage, the reality is that you're still going to have a really high demand for these skilled trades in terms of the work getting done for the consumer, right? And so I actually, people are talking recession, everything like that. I'm like, I don't know. Like, okay, now I'm seeing some layoffs. Sure, I mean, Amazon laid off 10,000 people, or is about to. Twitter laid off 7,500, whatever. At the end of the day, is that really going to make, even as big as these companies are, is that going to make a dent in the labor pool right now? No. And I don't know how you can have a recession when everybody's working. I get it if you've got a 24% unemployment rate, that a real recession happens. You got people that are literally starving for food every day, like begging on the street. Like, Great Depression kind of time. I understand, but what I don't understand is when you have almost the entire desired workforce employed, right? Because a lot of people that don't want to work after COVID and stuff like that, or during COVID, decide, hey, I'm going to retire early and what have you. Then I think the demand is still there. So with all that said, the mistake I think that a lot of people make is that they don't spend money on marketing. Right? They think, oh, I've got to button up and I've got to really hold back right now, and I've got to make sure that I keep that dollar for tomorrow just in case. And I'm like, okay, I get the mentality. I do. But I think it's wrong. I think that if you're not investing, I think you need to invest in the good and the bad times, and maybe the bad times even more so, right? I mean, when business is coming in your door nonstop, then do you need to worry about how your marketing campaigns are doing? Not as much. Should you still market? Yes, but if you're anticipating a possible slowdown in business, then I think that that's when you go heavier and harder than ever before. So I would make sure that I've got my sales process dialed in. I would make sure that my website is optimized for its SEO and stuff like that. I would make sure that my social media is really engaging. I would make sure that that everything is really clean and focused, and that the shop looks inviting and not too inviting. I was in a shop. Whose shop was I in? Oh, I know who it is. I won't say. Good friend of mine. And I was like, bro, like your shop looks like a living room. And I don't know what kind of image you're trying to get across, but this is not a hangout place. This is a place of business. And if he's asking me now to maybe come in for a couple of days, and I call it rip the shop apart and put it back together. Of course, I'm oversimplifying things by saying those
shop makeover, or whatever it is that you were
something
saying.
like that. But
Gosh,
I mean, he's got a super successful business, but I think that he could be doing a lot better. Ryan Burrows from Auto Paint Guard, right? Good friend of mine, amazing operator. But him and I went out to dinner a couple years ago, and he asked me, "Hey, I need a real assessment. I'm really sick." He didn't say the words "I'm really successful," of course, because he's too humble to say that. But he's probably one of the most successful operations, if not the most successful operation in all of Florida. And and he was looking for some real solid advice. And I said, "Man, like, let me tell you some changes that I would make." And he took them to heart, and he made all the changes, and now he's got more spare time than ever before, and he's got more work going on, and he's got more dollars being earned per hour and per hour than ever before. I'm going down to the grand opening of Billy Ellis's new shop, his new Tintology shop. Super excited for this, man. Kid has been on fire, right? And he's another XPEL only operation through and through. And they again, same sort of thing. The guy is investing now. He's not holding back. He's not worried about it. He's going hard. Tim Ham, like, as crazy and as amazing as his operation is, he's bringing on more employees than ever before, and getting ready, I guess, for that wave to never end. And I think that that's the right thing too. Like, I think a lot of it has to do with your mentality, right? If you're expecting the worst, you're going to get the worst. And if you're expecting the best, then that's what's going to happen. I believe that.
It is, right? Like, and with motorcycles, I believe it's a thing like with life, is where you look is where you go, right? They always teach you, like, where you look is where you go. And like, that's, you can also become very good at staying, like a squirrel can become very good at staying with the nuts that it has, or can become very good at going out and seeking nuts. And like, I feel like that's the skill. Like it's, like Manny was mentioning last week, like we're talking about how important it is to be able to adapt, how important it is to be able to observe, learn, adapt. That's the skill, right? And if you can do that, that's going to navigate you through. It's not about conserving, because no level of conserving, I mean, maybe some level of conserving, but it doesn't quite make sense, I guess, because if you're doing so well to conserve that much, why would you be so worried? It's usually when you're not in a great position, you're questioning, do I conserve or do I get better? And I think get better is the one that has to happen, because, right? It's the only, you can't save your way into like success, in my opinion. I mean, you can, but you have to be very successful to be able to save yourself.
Yeah, I mean, and right, and that's much more on a personal level at that point. It's
Right.
not about what are you investing in the company, right? I don't know that there's many people that are investing within their companies. Like, let's say a Warren Buffett, right? I mean, here's arguably one of the most successful men that's ever walked this planet in his business philosophy, and he's super conservative on what he spends on himself. But does he invest heavily in infrastructure and staffing and software and technology and AI and all that in his businesses in order to make them more successful than ever before? Absolutely, he does.
So I think one of the biggest mistakes people make, and I'm curious for your thought on this, but I think fundamentally on this subject where people go really wrong is they use the business bank account as well. I can spend out of the business bank account because it's going to be a write-off, right? So now you're spending out of that business bank account. So you're starting to lose track of what is your pay and what is company money per se. And
Right.
you then don't have a grasp on what you should be allocating to marketing or software or anything. You don't have that grasp because all you know are bills are coming in, bills are going out. I'm living my life. It doesn't seem like I have any extra money. So how could I possibly, do these things? Whereas if you see the numbers, you'll see where the problem is, and then you can immediately attack and fix it and go.
Yeah. And I was part of that myself. I mean, Dave and I, we really did originally treat the business account as if it was the only account, and it was kind of interesting. Like you said, I think it was Dave that was more reflective on this. And he was like, hey, we pay ourselves a handsome salary. We need to recognize that our own personal income is what we should be utilizing for our day-to-day personal benefit, and then yet the business should be quite segmented, and we should have a budget for this and we should have a budget for that. And he really liked seeing those sort of things in writing, and that was something that I wasn't obviously as concerned about, I think is the right word. And yet he was for sure, he was more correct for sure than I was on that idea. So when you have a plan in place, including a budgetary restrictions and stuff like that, or allocation maybe is a better way of saying it instead of restriction, then I do agree with you that you're going to be able to excel at those at all of those individual things in a much healthier fashion, I guess is where I'm going with this. When you blend the money and you're like, oh, okay, well, I'll take care of that next week, or I'll do that budget. I'll spend that money on Google AdWords or Facebook, boosted profile, boosted posts, and things of that nature, or Instagram, or what have you. Like, it was almost like it never came. And because the money got allocated for something else instead that came up. And yeah. Well, that's why a lot of operations do best by having some kind of controller that can show them this, that can do this for them. And keep in mind, Eric, as you and I both know, most of the shop owners that are out there to this day, they were not people that got out of university and looked at this as a business opportunity. They were installers themselves, working for somebody else, and decided at some point in time that they were wanting to work for themselves, right? For whatever reason. Usually it's because they thought the other person was making too much money on their back. And they got into this. And so does that mean that they know how to run a business? No, for sure not. Now, obviously, the ones that are around and certainly have been around for a while, they learned it. And some of them were great, really successful at it. But I don't know, what is it, 95% or more? I don't know if it's 99%. I don't know what the number is, but it's very high for installer became owner. Yeah. And therefore they've got to recognize from the beginning, maybe you're a great installer, but does that mean you're a good salesperson? I don't know. Does it mean you're a good manager of others? Can you train? I don't know any of these things. And hopefully you don't think that you can just because you're good at that one thing. Look, I might be an incredible jiu-jitsu practitioner, but does that mean that I'm also going to be amazing at soccer or basketball?
Right. I
I'm
think
not.
people umbrella business person sometimes and they'll go, well, I'm really good at this part of business. So I'm a good business person, meaning I can tackle all business
Right.
aspects with the same intensity and accuracy.
Yeah, I mean, look, I referred to somebody earlier in our organization, this gentleman named Eric Cummins. He used to work for Eastman. I've gotten to know him quite well. As a matter of fact, congratulations to him. He just had a baby boy. Super excited for him. Happened a couple of days
Congratulations.
ago. Yeah, and I've been in quite a few roundtable discussions with him, and I'm super passionate, as you know, and I'm fairly convincing, especially when it comes to like sales process and strategies. And then I have an opportunity to listen to him and hear him, and it's a very different perspective than mine. I'm not saying we're not aligned a lot. I'm just saying that where he comes at it is different. And to my own immediate direct report, which is Matt Moreau, multiple times I'm like, yeah, that man has a talent over in this area that I don't have. And it's
Right.
interesting to realize that, it's interesting to see that. You think that you're the Superman of the business and then, or the industry, and then come to understand that there's still some stuff for you to learn. And I actually might not ever get it.
And that's the beauty of teamwork and like how at any level, when you have a good crew of people together, that's how, you're supposed to complement each other, right? As people are good at different things. Not everybody's same at everything.
Yeah, I mean, look at Burke, right? I mean, he does a lot of consulting for a lot of people. He pumps a lot of people up, and gets them motivated for their day and stuff. And yet he says at least that I'm that person for him, right? So even on that level, it's like everybody still needs something else, somebody else, something above. And I don't mean like above as in like necessarily biblical or what have you. I just mean something where it can bring you back to reality and humble you and understand that there's others that have something to offer you as well. And I love it. I love listening to Burke to an extent. Certainly as much as he doesn't listen to me for many hours. He'll want to wear headphones after a short while with me because he's so tired of hearing the same spiel. But uh, he's a motivator, right? An amazing motivator. I think one of the best motivators, and yet he still needs it himself, right? What does that tell you?
Yeah. Yeah. We're all human is what it is. Like we're all, our perspectives are like we know so little, and we fill in a lot with our heads, but at the end of the day, we go through a lot. We all kind of crave the same things, and, we're all human. So speaking on that, we are approaching a new year, and I'm curious what this year, it seems like I remember speaking with you about last year's um, New Year's resolution that it seems like you kind of hit the nail on the head. And I'm curious what you see forward for this next year, if you've nailed anything down yet, or you're still up for it, like still figuring it
Well,
out.
like if you remember, my last year was really to do my best to try and respond to people as quickly as humanly possible and not leave people waiting. And I don't know that I left people waiting much in the first place. I just knew that it bothered me when people left me waiting for too long. And so I was going to do all that I could to respond to people quickly. And it's funny because sometimes now, especially because I'm caught in more meetings than I have obviously in the past, I won't recognize until the day after. I remember Tad Oglin, one of our reps. He's or him or Pete, like those two love the fact that I will call them back right away, always. And yet I was at corporate head office. My wife and the kids were also with me, but we were there from Thursday through until today. We got back today, and it was in a lot of meetings, and they were fantastic, necessary meetings. But they 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 obviously don't allow you to answer your phone when you're in a boardroom for 8 hours.
Right.
And so a couple times I've had to be like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't call you back, or I forgot to call you back, or I said to call you back and I didn't." But I feel like this year overall was a real success. I really do believe that I was able to accomplish, to really put a focus on that, I guess is more appropriate, to try not to leave people hanging. I mean, even in this call or in this podcast, I've had multiple phone calls from many people, and there's people messaging me in the background right now. And, you know, when we're done, I'm going to, you know, try and call them all back, or at least get back to them. But I can already tell you what my new one is. And it's directly related to the role. You know, I have a lot of friends in this business, a lot, and it's this business has created it, right? I mean, you know, I've got some of my dearest friends are people that I met through XPEL, and 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 so a lot of those people are aware of my new role, and they're concerned that I'm going to, of course, be unavailable, right? And I get that. You know, I remember that when I would, you know, I'd be traveling on the road and I'd be like, hey, Mike Mail's going to join us, you know, and there was this like, oh my God, like Mike's even coming. Like, because of course, that's a very high level role. Matt Moreau traveled with me not that long ago to New York City, and we went and saw some accounts up there, and it was of course the same, if probably even of course on a higher level, same sort of mentality, right? So now these people are like looking at me going, wow, you're the director of sales, I'm never going to hear from you again, or I won't be able to approach you, I won't be able to call you, I won't be able to text you. I'm like, no, fuck that. I am not changing one bit. I as however busy I get, I will figure it out, you know. I don't care, one way or another, I'm going to make it work, because I don't want to lose. I don't want to be that individual that becomes too big for anybody else, because I'm not. I mean, it's you know, a lot of my success is a direct relation to those people that help get me there. I'm very, very, very grateful to, especially the clients that I began with, you know, back in 18 and 17, where I had this vision, this really warped vision that, you know, that people should be XPEL and XPEL only, and they shouldn't use DAP to cut any other software, and that they shouldn't be giving their money to any other brand besides me if they really wanted to be XPEL. And you know, the beginning of those conversations was really crazy. I mean, it had never been seen or heard of before, that anybody that I was ever made aware of, that's for sure, and then certainly not successfully. And yet so many people saw my vision and took the opportunity to become exclusive, and I owe them all a debt of gratitude, because I wouldn't be where I am right now in this current role, and with the opportunity and hopefully future opportunities to move up further in the company without it. You know, this is now our global B2B strategy. We're not doing it in every single market yet. Obviously, we need to let some of those markets mature a little more, and understand those markets a little better. Some markets we have distributors versus, you know, direct sales, but it is 100% going global. And again, I really am really genuinely very thankful to those people that believed in me and believed in the vision. And I'm talking about the customers. I'm talking about the guys that did it, you know, kicking and screaming, like the Josh Popeniks and the Ray Van Dexters, you know, and look where we are. So that's my New Year's resolution, if you want to call it that, which is to say, hey, I'm still the same exact person. I'm not changing one bit. I will still be that asshole when I need to be, and I will still be the friend when I need to be, and I'm not changing, and everybody still has the same access that they always had to me, and I'll figure it out.
I'm sure that will only be an ongoing challenge. That might be a
I'll
next
tell you
year.
one thing, if you don't mind. I'm
Oh,
sorry to cut you off,
tell
Eric. I
me.
apologize.
No.
So I know that a lot of people have also been really dying to hear from Harry, and I don't want this to be the Expo show. I'm really glad that you had EPD on, and I'm sure you've had others, hopefully many others besides our brand. But there is a lot of people, especially, it was really obvious to me at SEMA how many people really wanted to hear from Harry, and the
Mhm.
whole lineup that he did. And I was going to reach out to you and say, hey, do we want to, you know, share the spotlight tonight with Harry? So I have a suggestion, if you will. Whenever you would want, because of course, again, you've got other people lined up and your other audience to consider, but whenever you would want to have Harry on the show, either Harry himself on his own, or we could make it even more interesting. We'd have Harry and myself, but if we did Harry and myself, the way it would be is like we did the show a little while back, which is no holds barred. I would allow people to ask whatever they want, and I will answer it, as uncomfortable as it is. As long as it's not some sort of thing that I can't legally
Sure.
respond to, it'll get responded to. And Harry was the one who suggested that, because that was one of his favorite episodes ever, is where I was on the hot seat. As a matter of fact, I'll give Manny a little shout out here. After that show was done, because we covered a lot of really interesting topics and aggressive topics. Manny said to me, there's probably nobody that could have actually gotten away with it besides you, in terms of how that show got carried out. So
I feel
I
like
think that maybe
that's a great idea. And there was a couple mentions of flat glass, and then after you mentioned Harry, Harry as well. And I know Harry's always been as transparent as you are, so I think that would be a fun, definitely something we'll line up.
you let us know whenever you want, and I'll tell you that I commend you again, as always. I love the podcast. I love everything you're doing for the business. I marvel at the stuff that you somehow put together, the IWFC, and your shooting the things up into the air, and for prizes. And I mean, there was just so much going on. I was just like, damn, like, this man is pure genius. Pure genius.
Thank you. I very sincerely mean that. Like, like, it goes such a long way. Your support all across the board, everybody who watches, your support for the podcast, like all that stuff adds up to like what it ends up becoming. So like it's what we all do for each other. Like we were saying earlier, as people, is like it all, it all really does have impact, like big impact.
I agree.
So thank you. Thank you for always being so transparent, coming on here, being such a friendly, great human being. And like I said, just coming on here and sharing whatever anybody wanted to share. There were a couple questions
Sure, ask
that
away if you want, or don't.
if you'd like. I mean, I can save them for next time because they're a little your call on time, because we can always save them for when you and Harry are in hot seat, or you are in the hot seat, or we can go through them right now. It's your call completely.
What do you want to do?
I say we save them. That's what I was thinking.
They're
Like,
that good?
go through here. There's some
Okay.
that really stand out as like specific questions they would like you to answer. So I feel like those are perfect to have lined up in addition to anything else comes in. And we'll start off the next show specifically with all the questions that were asked in the comments today.
Okay. I'm in. You let me know. I don't mind being in the hot seat, and it is what it is.
The transparency. It's like you said, if it's allowed by law, then just being transparent.
I want to give props to Eastman for a second, if you don't mind, before we finish this. On one of the last podcasts, one of the guys from Eastman that I'm actually not familiar with personally, like, he's a rep over on the western side of the country. I don't know if he's Suntech or Luma or both. But he had actually sent me a private message on Facebook, because, as you know, my Facebook profile hasn't been deleted. I don't use Facebook anymore. My wife tags me. Some jiu-jitsu stuff happens once in a while, but I don't actually get in there and post or comment or anything like that. But I do use Messenger. And he reached out and he just said, man, like, just want to thank you so very much for the candidness that you're sharing with everybody regarding our industry. And I think it's amazing. And I was like, wow, like, thank you so very much. It's really cool. Like, we haven't even met each other, but if Eastman would ever be interested in joining the podcast, I know that Eric would, of course, number one, love you on your own, but number two, if you guys want to do it with me as an XPEL Eastman and 3M through EPD, Manny's in for sure also. So, like, I think that since we're the three dominant players, we wouldn't be, of course, hey, I'm better than him over here, and like that, I know wouldn't happen. It would just be like, right, how can we collectively answer the community? And they're actually looking at seeing if they can participate. And again, like, let's be mindful of the fact that they're a much larger company. They've got a lot of other stuff besides just their film portfolio, and they do have a much larger legal section than we do. I don't even know. We've probably got like 4 or 5 lawyers that are on staff, versus them, they probably got 100. So it's a shame if they can't come. But in reality, it's not because they don't want to, right? They might just have that restriction. But I would love to see them to join us on a podcast at some point as well. So anyways, I don't know why I felt I need to get that in there at the end, but
I like it. I think that will help hopefully line up some great podcasts. So thank you for including it in there. I plan to keep doing these on a regular basis again. So yeah, that would
Well,
be great.
you better never stop, because there's just too many people that really enjoy this, including myself, very much so. I think that what you're giving back to the community is amazing.
Thank you so much. I really beyond appreciate that. And I will not stop because of that type of support, frankly.
Good.
So,
Well,
all
then with
right.
that, let's call it an evening, and I'll start returning some of these phone calls.
Sounds sounds good. Thank you so much, Chris. As always, I look forward to the next one. And thanks, obviously, for everybody who watched and participated.
Sounds good.
All right. Have a great night, everyone.
You too. Bye-bye.